Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to today's session, which is the effect of AI on life science recruitment. Obviously, for the last sort of 12 months now, we've all heard a lot of talk about AI. We've all seen everything that's been going on, but we've got some tangible data now, which is always really, really useful when you're looking at planning for the future. So I thought we'd share some of this with you today. As always, I'm joined by Vince. We have got a chat function. So if you've got questions or specific things you want to make a point of or ask, just pop them in there. As you can see, the meeting's being recorded. If you'd like a copy of the recording or even just the slides to go through in your own time, just email us at sales@PharmiWeb.com. So, Vince, I'll hand over to you to get started.
Sure. Do you want to go to the first slide?
Absolutely.
Hi, everyone. So just by way of introduction for you that don't know us, I'm the Managing Director of PharmiWeb. I've been running this business now for 25 years, which makes us as old as Google, believe it or not. And we've been running concurrently in that period of time. We do focus on a lot of things in the industry, mainly around EVP and employer branding, as well as obviously the recruitment areas. We also do a lot of training. But one of the other things we do is we constantly watch the market and what's happening and what's not. So what we've got today is just a brief overview on what we're seeing so far. Simon, do you want to explain your role in the company?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been with PharmiWeb now for just over 4 years, and in my time, I've mostly been on the front lines dealing with various companies and talent acquisition functions. So particularly today, I've kind of been in the midst of AI and learning about it, working alongside the marketing team here at PharmiWeb, Mike Wood, who we've got on the call. Waiting in the wings, ready to take any questions that are far beyond my level of understanding. So yes, I've been working quite closely with Vince on this too. So happy to have got all this data together and have it here to present to you today.
Right, go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to just start by setting the scene, really. And this is a statement that I particularly like because I think it really sums up what AI really means. We stand on the brink of a technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, work, and relate to one another. In its scale, scope, and complexity, the transformation will be anything will be unlike anything humankind has experienced before, and that came from the World Economic Forum. For my part, I'm actually really excited about AI and bloody terrified at the same time. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword for me, and I know many of you will see it the same way. But again, it's one of those things. It's a big change in its scope and scale, and I think as we come to understand it better and teach it better, then I think it will actually improve, and we'll settle into a really good experience of using AI to support us in everything that we actually do. Simon, can you go to the next slide? So with the speed of AI, let's really think about that. It's moving incredibly fast. The tools and integrations go quickly out of date. There's new tools coming all the time. Every company will ultimately have an AI team because everyone will need to compete in the marketplace, and we all need an AI strategy. So one of the things that we've got at the end of this session is we're going to send you a copy of these slides and also a guide to some of the tools that we found so far that we think can really help. And we'll cover some of those when we get to the end of this. You go to the next slide, Simon. So from an agenda point of view, first of all, we're going to talk about what's happened this year. Then we're going to think about the threats of AI in recruitment and the benefits of AI in recruitment, what the future holds and how to prepare for it, and some top takeaways. And I think all of those will slowly meld into one general overview, and then we can answer some questions at the end of that. Okay, next slide, Simon. And I'll pass over to you to carry on from this point.
Yeah, of course. So obviously this year has been probably the busiest one we've seen in terms of AI so far. Obviously, the tail end of last year, we started hearing a lot of rumblings, and we had things like ChatGPT come to the horizon, which is widely used and widely improved today, with yet another new version on the way. So let's look at some of the stats and facts that surround what's happened in the last sort of 12 to 15 months. So 44% of recruiters currently in the industry are saying that AI is freeing up their recruitment time. Obviously, that's a really encouraging stat to start off with because I mean, myself and Vince talk about this till we're blue in the face, but time is probably the most important thing when it comes to recruitment, to HR and talent acquisition, because there simply isn't enough of it. We've seen the rise of AI generated ads, AI generated video and artwork, which has meant that employer branding and actually showcasing you as a company has become easier than ever before, because you don't have to pay anyone to do it anymore. You can get a virtual bloke who looks like one of your talent acquisition team, and he can do videos for you in front of a background much like the one I have here, and it costs next to nothing. So it's easy and it's cheap and it's excellent, frankly. 95% of HR professionals, and this is across all industries, not just life sciences, have said that AI is making their internal process easier. So that's everything from onboarding to dealing with issues to the offboarding to letting people go. Internal processes are clearing up, becoming more streamlined and much more effective due to AI tools. A recent Fortune 500 survey said that 89% of companies scored really poorly in their proficiency with AI tools versus what's in the market. So, in layman's terms, this means that we're not really even scratching the surface of the tools that are available for us and the wonderful capabilities that these things have. And then finally, kind of rounding up the experience of AI so far, about 39% of recruitment and talent acquisition professionals say that AI tools and integrations are making their overall job easier. So it's actually lower than I would have expected. A lot of the people I speak to that are using AI are doing really well with it. And, they found a way to put it into their process that has won them back days at this point of lost time. So I expect to see that number rise as more people embrace this technology. Of course, to embrace the technology, we have to have an understanding of what's changing and things that are happening now that weren't happening before. So one of the things that has come to light really is Google. They're starting to see that it's not all hunky-dory anymore. Their dominance of kind of having the internet under wraps is largely under threat. They've rolled out things like Bard, their own GPTs, Gmail's got its own GPT now, all of these various different plugins and tools to make the portal stronger. And on the flip side, we're seeing people like Amazon, global giants investing in Anthropic AI to create the Claude GPT, which is another huge looking monolith. I think it's 15 billion they put into that, a wild amount of money. So ChatGPT, probably the one we're all most familiar with in this call, certainly. You can still use it for free, which is great, because if you've got a quick job advert that you want to tart up, or if you need to do a spec really quickly, it's excellent. There is a professional version which is charged. It will basically allow you to do a lot more in terms of volume. And there are other plugins and other tools and other integrations that are there with the paid version. So if you haven't yet made the jump, haven't committed to AI in that respect, it's worth looking into it. There are many more powerful tools on the horizon too from various industry giants. IBM, for example, and Cognizant are other companies that have made huge levels of investment. Cognizant just last month put about $1 billion into AI. So there's a lot coming in the next few months. Another stat that I just wanted to run by you, it's 99% of Fortune 500 companies, so the top-ish dogs, they've embraced AI in some way within talent acquisition and hiring. Now, we could probably find ways to break that data down into how they're using it, but they've embraced it in some way in their hiring strategy. Now, that can be from job advert writing all the way through to candidate screening. So it shows that everything is largely moving that way. AI, of course, is being integrated into other tools, things like CRMs, search tools, Office products. Microsoft Office has its own AI now, and CRMs, certainly Salesforce, HubSpot, all of those, they've got their own little plugins that are there and worth exploring. Moving on very, very quickly to the next slide, the threats. And I think this is probably what most people here are keen to understand a little bit more. So I wanted to start on probably the biggest threat when it comes to AI, and that is that 62% of people that work within recruitment and talent acquisition are concerned of the ethical use of AI due to inherently bias. Now, it's a really interesting one because AI learns its bias from its programmers. So that's our own fault in a way. So the thing that we're suggesting, and it's widely being suggested, is when you use AI, you've got to check what AI is doing. You have to almost go back and proofread what your proofreading tool is doing, because it will have inherent bias made by its creators. It's just the way it is. And I've been seeing some rather cool horror stories, I guess, lately about how they've got different companies from different backgrounds, different races, different ethnicities to create and train tools from the ground up, and then they've given them all the same tests when it comes to recruiting and hiring, and the profile of the perfect candidate was widely reflective of the community that made them. This is probably the biggest threat, I would say, in my opinion. Please do say if you have another one to the recruitment and talent acquisition side of using AI. There's a large element of keep up or be left behind. As we've seen, 99% of the Fortune 500 companies are using AI in some regard in talent acquisition and hiring. They're going to be working faster, they're going to be working smarter than you. They're not going to be working harder, because the aim of AI is to make everything a lot easier, a lot more streamlined. So you've got to do something to level the playing field in some way. As with everything, AI is no different. There will be people who will look for very, very cheap, easy workarounds. They'll be selling themselves as an AI registered or AI proficient recruitment service or talent acquisition function or tool, when really there's no regulatory body, there's no one saying anyone's better than anyone else, and they will be just creating substandard work but selling themselves on the premise that they know what they're doing because of AI. So as always, watch out for bandits, watch out for pirates. Candidates is the other side of things. They're able to fake it a lot easier. We were playing around with some tools the other day, and we were giving it CVs and asking them to turn it into the same CV, but for a different industry, for a different job title. And it was doing a fairly convincing job. The downside is that it will also lie. If someone's saying, I want to be a regulatory writer, for example, they're going to give them adequate regulatory writing experience. They're going to make up things that they've done. They're going to create sources, links. They're going to do all sorts to be as convincing as possible. And this presents us with great difficulty, because we're already seeing a rise in fraudulent candidates across some parts of the industry. But the threat of this is exponential compared to what we're seeing currently. And also, AI is ever changing. There's always going to be something new. There's always going to be something that works better than the last thing. And it is every day. Even 30 minutes before this phone call, I was reading a report that came through about AI tools and stats. It's constantly evolving as a market. So let's try and flip this on its head in a slightly positive way, because I think that last slide came across a lot scarier than I wrote it to and intended it to. So let's talk about how we can use AI in recruitment to save us some time, make life a little bit easier. So the first thing that I recommend people do is create engaging job adverts. You can put your specs into a GPT tool, and you can say, hey, please turn this into a really good job advert, into an engaging job advert that's going to do X, Y, Z. That's a really, really good way to ensure that you've got an up to date, top notch job advert. Avatar style videos, as I mentioned earlier, you can do corporate branded videos pretty much for free now. So I would look at doing some of those. You can do videos about specific jobs that you've got live. And I think even at PharmiWeb, Mike has been playing around with a couple. He's created a couple of AI generated ads for certain jobs that we've had advertised, just to see what the market's doing. There's some really, really cool stuff out there. So you should have a look. You can really quickly create candidate specs, saving time. I was speaking to a really good recruiter the other day, and one of the things he was telling me is, when he interviews a candidate, he takes all of his notes and then he goes and he builds it into a spec to present to his client. Standard stuff. That process is about an hour and a half. Using AI, he can now do it in about 15 minutes. So that means he's able to do 6 candidate screenings in the time it was taking him to do 1. So it's really quite impressive how they've been able to streamline that side of the business. AI can also help you pinpoint the problem in your talent pipeline. If you're finding in your process there's a certain part where people are dropping off, AI can go in and it can show you exactly where the issue is, where most of the drop off is, and it can suggest you ways to make it better. This is great because you could pay tens of thousands of pounds to a consultant to come in and do that for you, or you can have internal software that's going to be able to do it for you immediately. As we all know, HR and talent acquisition functions are usually heavily understaffed. They're usually under pressure, and there's usually something internal that's causing it to be a more difficult job than it needs to be. What AI can do is keep candidates in the funnel warm until you can review them. And this can be in multiple ways. It can be as simple as giving them documents and data and videos to watch about the organization until you're ready to review them. This way, your pipeline is much more engaged. They're warming up to working for you. Vetting tools are another one. We're seeing a lot more of these being made, and we're even seeing some on the horizon that look even better that we'll talk about later. But the vetting's really, really good because you can get systems that will score your database of candidates for you for jobs based on the parameters that you set. So you can say, right, I need this level of education. I need perhaps this many years of experience working in these kinds of organizations. What have you got for me? And it's going to do that for you, as opposed to you trawling through doing Boolean searches and what is a laborious task. You can now get tools to do it for you. And another one that's really good is questions for interviews and interview support. This is probably one of the more important ones because if you're hiring and growing as an organization, there's a high chance you're not going to know what every single job function you're hiring for does. AI, particularly GPT tools, will give you great questions for candidates that are going into very niche functions. So that's not to be overlooked. And also the support elements of an interview as well, AI can help you with. Moving on to what the future holds. The big thing I think for a lot of people is time. As I said earlier, AI is giving a huge amount of people time. 35% of all companies. This isn't just Fortune 500. This is everyone. It's using AI in recruitment in some way, and obviously that presents us a big disconnect with the companies that are on the Fortune 500 list, where 99% of them are using it. So we have a lot of integration to do. We have a long way to go and a lot of research to do to make sure that we keep up using AI in our process to stay relevant, I guess is the word. 38% increase in qualified candidate when using AI modules. And that's based on that tool I was telling you about on the last slide, where it's matching people to jobs based on really specific parameters. The matching is exponentially better than what we've seen previously. From a candidate perspective, and this is quite interesting, 85% of candidates are preferring personalized job ads given by an AI system. So something like ours, for example, where it's matching jobs based on the profile of the person, it's widely preferred. So from a candidate experience, AI is actually already proving really, really useful. We're seeing some really in-depth background checking being done. And this is great because I probably frightened everyone's socks off when I was talking about fraud a little while ago. We are seeing the counter software to these things now, which is going to make it a lot easier to understand these people, what their actual background is, if there are some red flags we need to be aware of, etc. We hope to see a lot more on this soon. Engagement and re-engagement modules for pipelining. So when people are dropping off in the funnel, we can bring them back. And when people are left waiting and holding, we can keep them warm. This is great because an engaged funnel, as we know, is going to be a lot easier for us to onboard. And then A/B testing. A/B testing is so very important when you're doing messaging. We need to know what's going to work for what community, for what message, for what purpose. There are so many tools now that can do this to a certain level, but we're seeing a much wider monolith being created to help us do this. Use of the word monolith, I'm going to give myself points. Also, adverts and messaging, all of this can be generated and it's going to be exponentially better in the future as well. So from my point of view, it's looking pretty bright. Vince, at this point, I'm going to take a breath and a sip of water and hand over to you to talk about things to be excited about.
Yeah, sure, no problem at all. Okay, I think from my point of view, talking to people and looking at what people are actually using, it's all about efficiency. So Simon mentioned that, a lot of people are using it to remove the administrative burden, and that's really allowing people to free up at nearly 50% of their time. So some of the things really take a lot of time and effort. And one of the old ones used to be things like job description optimization, making the writing job descriptions. Well, AI can take care of all that for you. You can do things like resume and CV screening and use it to help you with that. Candidate matching, the interview scheduling is also a good one. If you've got an assistant that can actually help you with that, can really make a big difference. So there's a lot of efficiencies there, and we're going to cover off some of this when we send you some of the tools that are out there to do that now. But some of the key ones is the data. How do you assess that data? What do you actually do with it? How do you use it to empower your team to actually work smarter? What do you learn? How can you change and develop based on that data? Because it's all going to be real time now. And then I think the other one is, AI will be built into everything. It's coming and it's coming really fast, and it's going to dramatically improve the quality of what you're actually doing. And at the end of the day, we're still humans talking to humans. So anything that's going to allow you to have more time to have that personalized contact with someone, to spend more time actually interviewing them, seeing what sort of person they are, is going to actually really help. And I think the other big one for me, because I know it's a big thing that I'm working on at the moment, is the AI will really help to reduce those fraudulent candidates. And in some sectors, we're being told that nearly 15% of all CVs are fraudulent. That's going to take huge amounts of your time with that. If AI can actually stop that, then it'll make a really big difference. Okay, can you move to the next one, Simon?
Absolutely.
So let's think about how it's being used right now. So when we're looking at job matching, that's around 37% of people are actually using that at the moment. Resume screening is around about 30%. Chatbots, a lot of people are actually using that. All of these things can really be useful and make a big difference. But the biggest one, I think 63% of people in pharma and life science at the moment are actually using it to write job descriptions and write good job adverts. And that really cuts out a lot of that dead time. So you're looking at about a 50% saving if you're using it correctly. If we can move on to the next one. So predictive analysis is always good as well. So you can actually use that data. You can look at how it's actually worked. What have you actually done? I mean, I speak to a lot of companies about looking at return on investment. Where are you spending your money? How's it working? What are your tools actually doing for you? And if you're doing anything around EVP or pushing messages or actually using different sites, different blogs, etc., how's that actually helping you? Especially when it comes to hiring the right person, not just the right person on paper. And again, the more personalized you make it, the better it is. So more time, because the AI is actually giving you that time, allows you to do all these other things and actually really look at people as an individual. So it's not going to take away the human content. I think it's just going to give you a little bit more time to actually do that and take away some of those, administrative tasks that really just take up huge amounts of time. If we can move on again, Simon. So from our point of view, some of the things that we've done that have really worked is the personalized experience for job seekers. Whilst they're in our environment, when they're looking at our employer hubs from clients' point of view, is making sure that they're getting the right information and the AI keeps in touch with them. Real-time automated abandonment emails are really good. So we know the drop-off between people looking for information on their mobile phone to go into their desktop is around about 32%. If we can reduce that by emailing them, if they don't fulfill that application, that really makes a big difference. And that will be happening on your sites as well. And the other big one that we're looking at the moment is really looking at excluding job seekers from particular locations. There is no point in getting bombarded with applicants from countries where they cannot work here or in your locations if they're not relevant. And even if they are relevant, if they haven't got a visa, they can't do the job. So we're looking at a way to actually reducing that and actually putting them in the direction of jobs that they can do or they can work for. So there's a lot going on there at the moment, and we'll talk to you about some of those tools. And we're really trying to get some deep mining tools to actually help us with that. If we can go on again, Simon. Now, the other thing with AI, of course, is you can actually use it to populate other sites. So omni-channel is really the way to go. Don't just rely on one channel. I've spent a lot of time talking to people about this recently. You know, it's not just about your website, about us even, or even about LinkedIn. It's about all those other places where you can be putting information that's going to be relevant. If you use your AI to work out where the best places are to be, you can make sure that anything you do create or anything that you send out there will go to all of those channels. And that becomes really, really important. And if we go to the next slide, primarily because of this, and I've talked about this time and time again to people, because the noise out there in digital and in media is so loud, it's very hard to actually get noticed. And it's all about the amount of interactions you need to have with a candidate. And across EMEA, it's around about 6 or 7 times where you've got to build awareness of you as an organization, make them consider you as the employer of choice, and then finally make the decision to apply to you. So think about omni-channels to getting your messaging out there, and use anything that you've created to get it out to the audience. In the US at the moment, it's something like about 12 times. So some key things to remember. Make sure that anything you have got is usable and you are actually using it. If you're not using the tech, remove it, get something that does work. There's some key takeaways here. It's here to stay, whether we like it or not, AI. So you've got to make sure that you use it and you use it effectively. Embrace it, learn how to use it now, and make sure it becomes pivotal to your organization. And you don't have to use everything. Just use the bits that really work for you right now. Automation is the key to using AI, especially when you've got some of those really burdensome administrative tasks. It allows you to get rid of those so that you can actually make the candidate experience a priority. You can spend more time talking to candidates. You can make sure you actually work with them on a one-to-one level and talk to them about what their real needs are. You can streamline all your activities. You can save time. You can create briefs, as we already see on ChatGPT. And all of this is going to be out of date very, very soon anyway, because something more powerful will come along. But make a start, get out there at the moment. So some of the main things that people are using at the moment are things like CV screening tools, job description optimization tools, candidate matching tools, interview scheduling tools are really, really good. If you've not looked at those, you need to look at those because they really do help, especially if you're recruiting a lot of people and it's multiple interviews. There's tools for assessing soft skills. There's tools for reducing bias and algorithms that you can actually put through all the tools you're using. You can do it as for things like talent network searches across your databases and people that you already know. It enhances the candidate experience, especially if you're using things like chatbots. One of the biggest complaints we get from candidates in all areas of the industry are being ghosted by companies, where they're not getting any interaction or any feedback about their interviews. They've put the time and effort in. Make sure that you actually keep them up to date with what's actually happening, because that interaction you're having with that candidate will stay with them for their entire life. So make sure it's a good interaction. And there's lots of other tools for job seekers and for talent acquisition professionals that we're going to send you a list of after this as well. The other thing to think about, just from our point of view, we're trying to keep all of these webinars really short and to the point, and sending you the information that you can then think about and distill for yourselves afterwards. I'm hoping this format works. We also like the question time type format. I want to keep them really short and sweet as we move forward in the future. And there's a list here of all the ones we've done so far. They are all recorded. If you'd like to see any of them, please come back to us and we'll give you access to view the recordings and the material and slides that came with them. And Simon, if you'd like to move on. So when we're looking at AI and algorithm, there's some really good links here for different things when you're looking at discrimination, GTB chat, how you use it for interview support. There's lots of different categories. Look at what's out there, go and try them, see how they work, explore them. If you've got an internal AI team, get them to look at them as well. One of the things that we're trying to do as we move forward is to start to build what we call a whitelist. That's the tools that everyone seems to like, everyone's starting to use, that we can then filter out to the broader audience so that everyone's using the same sort of thing. So we can get some continuity with these tools rather than them coming and going really quickly. And if we can move on, Simon. So the freebie list that we're going to send you after this really looks at a number of tools in each of these categories. We're going to send it to you. There's going to be links on there. You can go and have a look at them. It tells you what they do, see what fits you. And this is not an exhaustive list. This is a list that Mike's actually put together for us based on his experience on things that do actually work. and what they can do. So we're really keen to make sure that everyone's using something that we know at least does something, rather than things that don't actually work and got no depth to them. And the next slide, Simon. And that's it, really. So we're open for questions. We've got a number of people here. So there's myself and Simon, there's Mike, and I know there's a couple of people in the audience that could possibly help as well. So any questions coming in so far, Simon?
Yeah, I've got a few. I've got a few questions here. One of which was answered in the chat. That is in regards to the list. So if you do want a copy of it, email sales@pharmiweb.com. Ask if you want the slides, the video, the list, whatever it is. Just ping us a message and we can get it all sent over to you. In terms of other questions, we've got a few here. Are there issues with regulatory and compliance when it comes to AI tools?
Yes, there are. Depends on where you are in the world. We've just seen a list of regulatory and legal regulations that are coming out in the US, none of which are really getting through at the moment. It's going to take some time to filter through. There's a number of safety issues as well. So this is going to be an ongoing thing, and it's something you need to put out to your safety teams if you have them, or your compliance teams. Make them aware of what you're thinking of doing, so that you can have a statement that reflects the tools that you're actually using. This is going to be a bit of a minefield for a few years as AI starts to settle down, but I think there will be some clear parameters on that coming out from legal companies in the very near future.
Yeah, from my point of view, a lot of the bills that I've seen going through, or at least being proposed, seem to be around the bias side of AI, which we spoke about earlier. A lot of them, particularly out in the US, are not being passed; they're being failed. But I think this is something that we're going to see ever evolving and ever changing as more tools come to light, because as we've seen quite a lot before, sometimes things have to go really wrong before there's any change. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like, but there will be more and more regulatory compliance moving forward. I've got another one here, which is what exactly does AI give me back as a recruiter?
Well, from what we've seen in all the reports so far, it's purely time, and up to 50% of your time as well if you're using the right tools, especially on those initial screening sides and thinking about job descriptions. Those sort of things are going to save you a lot of time if you're actually using it. I think most people are already anyway. Anything that's, as I've already said, an administrative burden that just takes time and effort, you can really capitalize on and use them, free up that time to then actually go and actually talk to people in person. I think the other big complaint that we get from candidates is, make it more personal, spend a bit more time talking to them, prepare them more for interviews and make them a little bit more in depth. But again, every organization's got its own views on that. Simon, anything from you?
I mean, yeah, the biggest one from my point of view is time. Streamlining a lot of the laborious tasks is by far probably the hugest benefit of AI tools. And yeah, being able to be a human professional again, spending time speaking with people, understanding the fit of them to the organization, and doing your best, recruitment detective work, as it were. It's why a lot of us got into the industry. It wasn't to sit and build big lists and be behind a computer. It was to deal with people, right? So it's going to give you the ability to do that again, more so than that you've been able to over the last few years. So I think personally, that's it. Your time and your humanity. It's quite exciting, I think, to be in this industry right now. A couple more questions. One, are people worried about AI? I mean, outside of bias, sure. There is concern, particularly around human safety. There were some articles from mainstream news today about the UK government and some of the regulations they're trying to put forward, citing the potential for human loss of life as one of their chief concerns. That's not a big thing in human resources and talent acquisition, I hope. But Vince, what do you think?
I think there is a lot of concern out there. As I
Mm,
said, I'm scared to death on one side and excited on the others, and I can't make my mind up which one it is. But I think
yeah.
that's the way all things are. I mean, we can't stop AI; it's here. Quantum computing is just around the corner. All of those things would drastically change our lives, and I think we need to embrace it, see where it takes us. But the other thing, of course, is a lot of people, have a bit of FOMO about AI as well. They don't want to miss out on this fantastic opportunity, but it doesn't mean you have to implement everything straight away. What you can do is investigate. You can look and see. You can get a feel for what's right for you as a person and you as an organization, and use the tools that make a difference and slowly build it up over a period of time so that we get some familiarity with it. That would be my advice. And I mean, we were at 2 conferences over the last couple of days, and a lot of the people there are talking about AI and is it a worry? Is it not? Is it going to help? Is it not? So I think it's going to be a help. I think we just need to take it slowly and get to more familiar with what AI can actually do and make sure we train it and interact with it properly to actually get what we want from it.
Yeah, I completely echo your statement there. Final question then, unless there's any more. If you do have a question, feel free to pop it in the chat now. I'll stay as long as any of you want to, because it's probably a rather burning topic for a lot. So we'll stay as long as you need. How many companies are using AI currently to write job descriptions?
But the data I've got in front of me here suggests that 63% of companies are actually using it to write job descriptions, and the expected future for that for next year is around about 75%. That's the biggest growth area. Screening resumes and CVs is around 25%, and that's going to go up to 46%. Providing candidate feedback, so using the AI to actually feed back to candidates, is going to go from around about 25% up to 38%. So they're all growing, but they're growing quite proportionately with usage. That's the key. The biggest one for me is when I've talked to candidates primarily is the ghosting fact. They like to know what's going on. They don't want to be kept waiting for weeks and weeks and weeks. Just interact with them, keep them warm, and you can use AI to do that really effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from my point of view, it's not always obvious to the eye when AI has been used to write a job advert. I mean, there are, let's call it, some trademarks of advert writing. Phrases like "we have an exciting opportunity." It's commonly done, right? I'm finding that AI written adverts, they kind of don't do that so much, because I guess they want to stand out a little bit more. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I'm seeing less of the trademarks of a generic job ad in AI written things. But again, this is if you're really going through it with a fine tooth comb, it's not immediately obvious to the eye. I couldn't have even estimated 65%, honestly. I would have said it was distinctly less than that. So that's an interesting number to me. If there's no other questions in that case, that's everything. So what I'll do is I'll stop the recording. Just to note again, if you did want a copy of the AI tech list, the slides, the video, or just wanted to ask us some more questions, you can email us at sales@PharmiWeb.com, and we will come back to you today with that information. So thank you everyone for your time. I'll stop the recording now, and if there's anything to say, please do keep them coming. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.